And here we have a spider in the grass. Hi, we're still in Missouri. It's still a jungle out there, so I'm still dressing for the occasion. Now, in the previous presentation, some people noticed that I wasn't wearing a cover. It's because it casts a shadow over my face, makes me harder to see. Also, people have noticed that the different parts of the ensemble don't have an exact color match. I wasn't able to purchase them at the exact same time in the exact same place from the exact same vendor. These are the results I got. Folks, let's try not to get our panties in a bunch over minutia. Now, what we are talking about today is Hornady Critical Defense 9x19 ammunition. Regular versus light. Both of these have FDX projectiles like ballistic tips, except this one has a 115 grain projectile while this one has a 100 grain projectile. Is that what they meant by light? I'm pretty sure they didn't mean that it's lower calorie. But how will these two compare in terms of accuracy, power, and effectiveness? Let's see if we can put that to the test, and we'll start with some tedious chronograph testing. Now remember everyone, we're on a private range, so we do have some of our stuff in the background. I've got my chronograph set up at 7 yards. I have the Beretta 92FS loaded with the Hornady Critical Defense regular ammunition with the 115 grain projectile. .1092, 1091, duplicate 1091. Now that's the difference between throwing out the second one and not, is when the chronograph tells me duo. 1100, 1107, and 1076. Let's see how that compares to the light ammunition. And now our Hornady Critical Defense Lite with the 100 grain projectile. $10.99, 11.18, 11.25, 11.42, 11.31, 11.29, 11.59, 11.11, and 11.37. Let's go crunch the numbers. Well, I crunched the numbers and the results I got were with the regular a mean velocity of 1,092 feet per second. With the light, 1,127. That's 35 feet per second more. Almost within the variation of one round to the next, and I'm going to say probably not enough difference to make a difference. We also have to remember that the light achieves that greater velocity with a lighter bullet, 100 grains versus 115 grains. So how do our two ammunitions compare in terms of energy foot-pounds? Well, if I did my math right, with the regular we got 304, with the light 282, 22 pounds less. Again, I'm going to say not enough difference to make a difference. But let's see if we can put my hypothesis to the test. To compare the effectiveness of these two rounds, we're going to use the meat target. For those who haven't seen it before, the meat target is leather couch skin, followed by pork steak pectorals, pork ribs, a bag of mixed oranges and grapefruit to simulate lung tissue, more pork ribs on the back, 4 layers of t-shirt on the front, 4 layers on the back, and the whole thing followed by the new and improved high-tech fleece bullet stop. And I'll shoot this from a distance of 7 yards with my Beretta 92FS, which is loaded with our Critical Defense regular ammunition. Here's the ribs on the front of the target, and we see some pretty good damage, and where projectiles hit ribs, shattered them. We also see a lot of damage to our orange lung tissue. Our ribs on the back of the target have holes through them, and again, where projectiles hit ribs, broke them. And all of these projectiles were stopped by the t-shirt on the back of the target. Let's take a close-up look at these projectiles. Here's our projectiles, and I recovered a couple of the red tips, and we see that our expansion is uniform and very good. Now I have a new meat target set up and have my Beretta 92FS loaded with the Hornady Critical Defense Lite. I'll shoot this meat target from 7 yards, and let's see how our results compare. With our Hornady Critical Defense Lite, we see some really good damage to the ribs on the front of the target, where projectiles hit the ribs, shattered them. We also see a lot of good damage to our orange and grapefruit lung tissue. As far as the ribs on the back of the target, these are a little different. Only 2 of the projectiles made it through to the t-shirt on the back of the target. The other 3 were stopped in the ribs on the back of the target. It's also very interesting to see the condition these projectiles are in. Let's take a close-up look at them. We see that 3 of our projectiles have good uniformed expansion, but 2 of them broke apart and they fragmented, and these 2 pieces were the only things that made it through to the t-shirt on the back of the target. The jackets and the fragments were caught in the ribs on the back of the target. Also, an interesting thing is, Critical Defense ammunition has a red polymer tip. Critical Defense Lite has a pink polymer tip. And we have a visitor on the range, the Missouri State bird, the katydid. So let's see how our ammunitions compare for accuracy. I'll go back 15 yards and I'll shoot the target on your left with the regular, the target on your right with the light, and we'll see how our groups compare. So our group with the light, we have 1 flyer, that was just me, but other than that, the group's not bad. Certainly better than the group we got with the regular. But was this the ammunition, or just me? I'll put up a new groundhog, see if I can improve this group. Now we see a much better group. We also see that the groups of the 2 ammunitions are in different places, and this reminds us of 2 things. 1, you have to test the ammunition you plan on using, and 2, just because I got these results with my pistol does not mean that you'll get the same results with your pistol. One more thing to add. I pointed out that the light ammunition has a pink polymer tip, while the regular ammunition has a red polymer tip. The light ammunition also has pink highlights on the box. Perhaps they're trying to point out that it's feminine ammunition, I don't know. But there could be a plus from that in that if the ammunitions were out of their boxes and you got them mixed up, at least you could tell the difference between the 2. So the takeaways from all of this. We saw that with our chronograph results, the differences in velocities and energy foot-pounds were at most minimal. As far as our meat target, we saw that with the regular ammunition, we had good penetration, but very little potential for over-penetration. All of the projectiles were stopped by the t-shirt on the back of the target. We also saw good expansion, consistent expansion, and a lot of damage to the target. While with the light ammunition, although we saw what I would say was pretty good damage to the target, our projectiles were very inconsistent in their results. Some expanded well, some fragmented. Only parts of 2 projectiles actually made it all the way through the target. Now, some people might say, great, that's even less potential for over-penetration, but I'm going to say this. When you get right down to it, the meat target really is a pretty skinny guy. And we saw with our regular ammunition, extremely little potential for over-penetration. With our light ammunition, we saw what I would say was less penetration, and I'm going to call that a potential for insufficient penetration. Certainly insufficient when compared to the regular ammunition. Also, with the lighter bullet, some people might think there's less recoil. I can say that as far as the recoil I could detect, I could not feel any difference. Now, in terms of accuracy, there didn't seem to be any significant difference, but we did see a shift in the locations of our two groups. Again, I want to reiterate, you have to test the ammunition. So is there any real advantage to this ammunition? I can think of one. If I were carrying a rig like this, and I've got a total of 4 15-shot magazines, and I had those magazines full, if I filled those magazines with light ammunition as opposed to regular, it would save me some weight. In fact, it would save me over 2 ounces. So, as always, don't try this at home on what you call a professional, and thanks for watching the Hornady Critical Defense Regular versus Hornady Critical Defense Lite video. Earlier I mentioned that the katydid is the Missouri state bird, and that created some confusion. Some people were saying that the cicada is the Missouri state bird. The Missouri state bird is the katydid, and the Missouri state song is Song of the Cicada.